歌わないプリ？さっきのでお仕事おしまいだよ。
You used to be all about the music until you sold your soul to Disney. We opened this week with the Idol Cures gathering at Tanaka's place. Again, your name isn't on the list, Maron. He brought him over to sign a poster that was a lottery prize for their little contest from last week, which, yeah, I still question what was even the point of that. However, out of the 5 of them, only Kokoro had figured out what her autograph was going to look like, which was cute, and I like it when they use square to represent a repeating name. Still, since everyone else wasn't a total idol stan like her, they needed some pointers on how to refine the art of the Hancock.
私は他のアイドルとかのサインを参考にしました。レジェンドアイドル響海斗。
Oh yeah, that's a name that we haven't heard in a while, and weren't exactly begging to hear again. And as it just so happened, he was restarting his idol activities. Yeah, call me when Aohyo Doshi comes back from her hiatus, and then we'll talk. Also, yeah, I legit forgot his last appearance was right before Marilyn's first appearance. It's been that long, which, as I'll explain later, doesn't make me all that excited for his return. Anyway, Utada then got a call from her sister who needed help at the cafe. Because, as it turned out, Kaito had mentioned that he went to a cafe that matched the description, leading to certain fans tracking it down to go to it.
Kaito-kun, どの席に座ってました？お気に入りのハーブティーって？
Yeah, it doesn't matter how cute you draw those girls, that stuff is still kind of disturbing. Though to be honest, this also does feel rather realistic, as you know some Taylor Swift fans would totally do this. Though fortunately, Uta was the only member of her family who realized that Kaito had even been there previously, and there he is, oh crap. So yeah, even if Uta tries to get him away, surely these fans will follow and...
ちょっと雰囲気似てたけど、あれは別人だね。だね。
You know, I've actually heard some good arguments about why some people would have a hard time recognizing Clark Kent as Superman, because yeah, he does have such a plain face, but really that should only apply to people who aren't actively looking for him, like these stands are for Kaito. Like, it actually makes perfect sense for Uta's family to not have recognized him, as they're at best casual fans, and therefore wouldn't be actively looking for him, unlike these fangirls who came believing that he'd actually show up. It just don't add up! Actually, I think I know of one reason for this forced setup, shipping, which again, more on that later. Anyway, after the workday wrapped up, the Kaito sycophants at least went home with a satisfying cafe experience, while Tanaka did an Ashita no Joe reference, which I almost feel like we already did in this season, or maybe I'm just thinking about 100 Line. Either way, he did get back into work mode when he got a call from Koharu, who really is becoming a recurring side character in the show. They got a gig just for Uta to, of course, do some product placement, which has been pretty common this season. It was nothing special, just further highlighting how this Precure team will do actual jobs in this world, rather than just fighting evil all the time, which doesn't have to include some corrupt corporations, but I digress. About the only thing that really stood out was how I think this announcer was voiced by Sayuri Yahagi, who also does Chokine in the show.
本日は素敵なゲストにお越しいただいております。じゃあ5倍働きな。
Again, insane range. Anyway, this scene was also set up for some shipping, though this time between Kaito and Cure Idol. And honestly, it's an interesting idea having Kaito interact with both of Uta's personas, which will likely eventually lead to him connecting the dots, as he even recollected seeing one of their fights.
あれは、撮影、ドラマの。
Oh, come on, Uta. You and I both know that Toei would mostly CGI that fight. The only problem I have with this, as I've been kind of hinting throughout this review, is the execution, which was probably best highlighted here, as a producer and his assistant director ran into the two. The latter was a Cure Idol fan and wanted her autograph. This led to kind of a cute scene with Uta still working out her autograph, and figuring that she should try to write in English like Kokoro, but she didn't know the spelling, so she just settled on katakana. Well, at least you can actually read that. I'm not even sure what Yumiri Hanamori was trying to write with this, other than this Limo thank you. And maybe that's supposed to be a Y? However, Kaito then proceeded to chew her out to, frankly, an unfair degree. Like, sure, Uta could have paid more attention to the AD, but 1, they kind of caught her by surprise. 2, she said that she was still working out her autograph. And 3, and most damningly, you really don't know her all that well, dude. At least not enough that you can get away with saying something like this.
考えた方がいいかもね。それでも アイドルって言えるのか。
What an asshole.
Like, as far as you know, she's still a newbie to this industry, who's also busy fighting monsters. In fact, I think his last interaction with Ta's alter ego was during the aforementioned monster fight, so yeah, he hasn't even really talked with her in this form. And really, that's my biggest issue with this character, and bringing him back now of all times. The story has just developed beyond anything he can really contribute other than some shipping with Uta, which frankly, I think should go more to Idol/Zukyun.
A holy garden of two tender blossoms. It's not the kind of place some dude bros can just waltz into and trample all over.
Not to mention, there's other things that really should get more development, like our villains, as we really haven't learned about their motivations yet. That said, I will admit, I think they're taking Zakuri's character in some much more interesting directions than Cuddy, as his stuff was way more relatable. For him, he was very much on the verge of a total burnout due to being the only active general left, as Chokine wasn't getting off her lazy ass. And judging by the next episode previews, he's even gonna have some meaningful interactions with Nana. And honestly, the premise of this boy and girl interaction was way more interesting than anything involving this untoasted white bread. Anyway, before we got to the villain stuff, we actually got a cute bit of the Cures coming up with some pretty creative autographs. Personally, I like Uta's the best, as writing the D in Idol as a musical note was not only really clever, but also kind of impressive considering that you have to get that curve just right. However, she couldn't fully appreciate it thanks to Kaito's unwarranted criticism. Yeah, because it's totally your fault that staff member kind of ambushed you on the spot. But yeah, he stopped by the cafe, and after forgetting the whole point of his own disguise, he ended up revealing himself to both Old Man Mobius and a fangirl who happened to be at the cafe. Now fortunately, this did let Uta see a proper example of how to do an autograph, but it also produced a victim of the week. Again, I'm really looking forward to seeing this character's development rather than Kaito's. With that, the Precure went into action, with Zukyun Kiss making the first move, and this was a pretty good fight this week, mostly thanks to some very unique and stretchy animation. I think most of this was done by an animator named Yurio Toshima, who's still fairly new to the industry, but with sequences like this, he's already building a good early portfolio. My personal favorite bit was Uta and Prune ducking and dodging together here. Again, can we just get more between these two rather than with Kaito? Anyway, I guess the Six Rangers had already done enough advertising for their own toy, so we got the return of Trio Dreams as the finisher this week. We'll say it's a bit of a missed opportunity of not having Prune as a Cure in the audience if she's not going to be flying around in her fairy form. Anyway, after the fight, the fangirl they saved also turned out to be a Cure Idol fan. And since she didn't have another autograph paper handy, she asked Uta to do it on her back, so I guess she's not going to be wearing that blouse after today. Still, it let Uta naturally have a more intimate interaction with a fan, considering that she was basically branding her, but it was still cute, and it got Kaito's approval, which again, who really cares? And oh, the episode's already over? Okay, that's kind of an awkward place to end things. Though that probably best sums up this episode. It's awkwardly just meh. Like, as a means of reintroducing Kaito to the show, it wasn't all that effective, especially with him having been absent for so long. Like, even putting aside my Yuri bias, he just doesn't feel like it's significant enough of a character to have any major role at this point. Considering that Kaito's VA, Daisuke Sakuma, is an actual idol, I do wonder if he's just not available much of the time for the show. If that's the case, then I think he'll just ultimately become a rather superfluous character, more so than he already is. Like, even if he were to be more of a mentor figure, it's not as though the Precure really need one, thanks to Kokoro being very knowledgeable about idols. Plus, he's only really mentored Uta so far, and this week, he was kind of a jerk to someone who he hasn't really gotten to know. Really, it just feels like he's here to act as cheap shipping fuel for Uta, even though I feel like her interactions with Prune are way more fun and interesting. And yeah, I'll admit I do have a certain bias, but at the same time, this franchise hasn't exactly had the best track record when it comes to hetero relationships. I don't know, I just don't think the show has really given us enough to get invested in this character in general. And with more interesting subplots like Zachary and Nana stuff developing, which is also hopefully gonna let us learn more about the villains of the show, I just don't think he's worth the screen time. Maybe a few more appearances could change my mind, but for now, overall, this is just a very meh episode, with at least a good fight, and promising developments for next week. Needless to say, I will not even bother comparing these two to Ginu/Rumi, it's freaking night and day. Thanks for watching, and if you want something a little more attainable than autograph from your favorite VA, well, our videos are around here, right? We've got something new coming out almost every day, with even the occasional seasonal anime recommendation and review. Look forward to Protection. Until then, though, farewell for now, my friends, and no, rumors are spreading that Taylor Swift is going to my local supermarket. It's Uber Eats tonight for me.